Hi, I'm Joss Loudon and I ride for Drops Lacole, supported by Tempur. We are a women's UCI professional race team. Whilst 2020 was a complete and utter washout for racing, we are quite hopeful that 2021 will be more promising, and I am preparing for that at the moment, which has been pretty hard during lockdown. Training and keeping motivation up and sort of trying to hold faith that we will be racing again in 2021. But this is a day in the life of me.
So we get up, down, we've got our bit of a division of labour for breakfast because it's a bit of a labour, an art form, I like to think, preparation. We need to eat quite a lot with our training, so it starts with a good breakfast. So an average training day is about 3 hours, perhaps 2 to 3 hours, of training, which is, well, for me, that's about 2,500 calories extra that I need to eat. And quite a lot of our day is spent cooking and prepping, or eating food. I don't want to just eat like gels and bars and things like that, so make nice things. Yeah, it's been pretty weird training these last few months throughout, well, I suppose the last year we've been in a state of lockdown. So we sort of got plunged into lockdown in March 2020. So we were on a training camp up in Tenerife at the time, so up on TD, because we were getting ready for the race season and for our world record attempt that we were going to do in Bolivia, or I was going to do in Bolivia in Cochabamba. So we sort of, the news of the pandemic sort of filtering through to us up on TD, and we were like, we've got to leave, we've got to get out, because Spain was going into lockdown, and then Spain went into lockdown, which meant that we weren't allowed to leave the house we were staying in, confined to just our property, so we couldn't train or anything. But then we were like, what are we training for? The world's gone into lockdown. But at that point you didn't really realise that it was actually going to go on for so long. Finally managed to leave, get a flight back to the UK, and then the UK went straight into lockdown. It's been very weird because all the way along it's been this sort of state of incremental information where you think you're going to be racing again in a few weeks or a month, and then another month, and then it's going to get going, and then it doesn't get going, and so you're training and you keep just training and you keep training, and then nothing's kind of coming to fruition. You always kept motivated because you always thought we were going to get racing again. And then the world did sort of open up in the summer and there were loads of races, but because we're riding for a British team, we didn't have the right insurance that would enable us to go abroad to race. So that was then really painful, because we were watching all the other women teams race, and we weren't there. By about October time, I was pretty sick to death of training, racing, living this sort of lifestyle that is completely centered around training and preparation for a race that doesn't come true. I guess the thing that's enabled me to stay positive and motivated throughout it all is just belief that it is going to get better, that we will be racing again, and when we do, we want to be in good shape for it. So it's just gonna make some drinks and then get on the turbo. So I've just sat down up in the study because I've got some work to do today. I'm quite lucky that I can work alongside training and racing. So I work for a company called Intelligence, which is a data analytics company. Been there a really long time, and they've always been really supportive actually of my cycling. It's pretty hard to, like, if you were to just rely on income from racing, it's next to nothing. So you've really got to work as well. But generally they complement each other quite well, because I can get up in the morning and I'll work for a little bit, and then I'll train, and then I'll come back in and get stuck back into work. So on the whole, it's pretty good. And throughout lockdown, it was great, really. I ended up working quite a lot more because I could, and it sort of means that I'll go into this race season feeling a little bit better about working less, I guess, because I know that I've put in the time. Also, I'm not ever bored. Even though people talk about lockdown being boring, it's not. Life is not boring. It's rarely is there. Well, I don't ever have time where I sit around and I'm bored. There's loads to do, whether it's for the team, whether it's training, whether it's racing. I do some coaching as well, so I've got some riders that I coach. Never going to leave cycling world, but I'm not going to leave working in this capacity either. So being able to keep them both going has been really, really important. Yeah, jumping on this afternoon once I've eaten this and get some work done. So, getting ready at the moment to get back to racing. So we're heading off to the Netherlands on Monday the 8th to race that week in the Healthy Aging Tour. So I go out to my team house in Belgium. We'll meet up with the rest of the team. Pretty nervous, but pretty excited because it's been a year. But I guess that's, really, really, really excited. Almost feels a bit too, is it actually going to happen? Is it going to come together? I've had so many setbacks and so much disappointment and stuff in the last year. So fingers crossed, we'll be racing. And because we're having this is an easy ride today, so we like to take our time, have some stops, food with us, might even get a cafe in class. Maybe I can call you from the maybe we can find a way to merge that. Obviously we're in lockdown, there's you can still get a takeaway coffee, which when you're on an endurance ride, it's quite nice to stop and have a quick break. Lots of cycling stuff. But obviously only sort of recently we've been able to stop quite a big difference, because actually it's really hard during proper lockdown when there's nothing open and you're out, you actually do rely on stops. It's really good that now things are a little bit more maybe I can call you from the maybe we can find a way to merge that. So yeah, it's a bit of a funny one. So I was a runner really. From a pretty young age I started training. I always rode a bike, but was just sort of like for fun and because my family were really into cycling. But it was like running and athletics that I preferred to do. Trained pretty hard for running, and then when I was sort of mid-20s, my knees didn't want to run anymore, basically. So I decided to go on to my dad. My dad, basically, he's the chairman for a cycling club in Sussex, and he at the time was organising a sort of training camp / sort of cycling holiday in Mallorca. We joined their trip. So we went along thinking like we were pretty like, well, we were like clueless. We were like, oh my God, they're going to be so serious. And we were like, oh, we're going to be so unfit. We're going to be dreadful. We did a few bike rides before we went, and like, I've got to get in shape. And we went, and basically I spent the week flying around Mallorca with the guys in the club, and they were like, you're really good. And I was like, yeah, maybe I am good. Anyway, absolutely loved it. It was so hooked. It was like one of the best trips ever. And then I came back and bought a time trial bike off eBay. Yeah, so that summer was just hooked, completely and utterly, totally hooked. I broke up with a boyfriend that I'd been living with when I was in London, moved out from his, so was sort of floating about that summer in a bit of a state of like, oh God, what am I doing with my life? And cycling sort of sorted me out really, because I just rode loads, did loads of time trials, and then some hill climbs. And at the end of the season, a team approached me and said, would I go and ride for them? There's that turning point in Mallorca that just changed my life, I suppose. But in terms of who inspired me, the thing is, I get asked this quite a lot, especially to do with like women, empowering women in sport. People always say, who inspired you to race? And it's not necessarily the best answer, but the truth really is actually my dad and my brother, because they were the ones that really, really encouraged me to do it. They would take me along on their training rides, on their group rides. They'd take me to races. They'd go and do sportifs, whatever, or in other countries, and I would always be invited. They just encouraged me to do it, and there was never ever a sort of a separation or a thing of like, you're a girl, you're not going to be good enough to keep up with the boys. It was like, of course you can not only keep up with the boys, you can beat the boys. And that was the encouragement. So although I feel like it's, there wasn't specifically a female athlete that inspired me to ride, because it was my dad and my brother, but the fact that there was no sort of feeling that I wasn't going to be good enough.
You need motivation to be able to keep on top of it all. It's pretty hard. I suppose the thing that keeps it going is that like I'm part of a team and they rely on me. There's a lot of people that have the confidence in me or confidence in us as individuals, and so I suppose that's motivating in itself.